I shout your name, I praise your name, oh God. When I look at the oceans, the beasts of the sea, I shout your name, I praise your name, oh Lord my God.
Welcome to Come and Relax with HeCoin, sponsored by Health Education and Counseling Institute, the premier online educational institution in Jamaica, the Caribbean and beyond. Come and Relax with HeCoin is an interview and discussion segment which focuses on topical issues which may be controversial on health, aggression in proximity relationships, theology, business, politics, music, tourism and hospitality, or issues which are relevant to you or listening audience. This program is aired this and every Thursday at this time on this station and comes to you on several international media houses in the world through various platforms on website, YouTube, and Facebook. I'll be your host, Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O'Neill Jarrett from Jamaica, President and CEO of this 33-year-old institution. HeCoin, reaching people where they are, leading them to where they should go.
I shout your name, I praise your name, oh God. When I look at the mountains, the sky and sea, I shout your name, I praise your name,
oh Lord my God, you made humanity
a little less than your divinity.
Oh Lord my God, we marvel, you are great. You crown us with your glory and your love.
I find Come and Relax with HeCoin to have the most interesting topics discussed, which lead me on a great path for the future. I am a #1 listener from the Caribbean.
Greetings and welcome to Come and Relax with HeCoin, which comes to you today from Mansil East Meets West Indian Restaurant, Shop 16A, Sonis Plaza, Main Street, Oteria, St. Anne, Jamaica. So you'll be hearing quite a bit of sounds around, but that's fine. Call Latoya Brown or Hensel Wright for your restaurant bookings at 1-876-601-2612 or email at info@curryhouseja.net. Excellent setting here at Mansil East Meets West Indian Restaurant for meetings, weddings, and other events. I'm your host, Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O'Neill Jarrett from Jamaica. Let me thank the following media houses for airing Come and Relax with HeCoin: RCP Internet Radio and TV, YouTube and Facebook, TDN TV on vstreams.com, TDN TV on Facebook, TDN Network 1 on YouTube, UFDV Gospel, and DCM Internet Radio and TV. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
My name is Hazel Williams Blair, a graduate of HeCoin, Montego Bay Campus, Jamaica, where I did the 6-month Elderly Care International Diploma Level 2. During my time in the course, I was very excited to learn in class, and the teachers were precise and professional. We had fun, especially in the practical areas. I received credit in theory and distinction in practical, and I'm proud of myself. I was exposed to all the skills a practical nurse must know and learned about all the body system along with this bedside nursing. I am currently working in the field of nursing and love it a whole lot. I love the friendly payment plan that the school has in place, which made it more affordable. I highly recommend HeCoin to you, and I will talk about HeCoin as long as I live. All the best, HeCoin, with your online nursing classes. I thank you all.
Many students who study overseas are seriously affected by culture shock. Some of them experience culture shock at their local airports, overseas airports, in the new learning environment, with new friends and even relatives who are overseas. As students prepare to study overseas, Come and Relax with HeCoin, sponsored by Health Education and Counseling Institute, will prepare students for the possibility of culture shock, which is most times inevitable. Join host media and marketing consultant and professor of media studies who studied internationally and lectures internationally, Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O'Neill Jarrett. He and his guests, who have also studied overseas and currently work with students who are studying overseas, will help students and parents to understand and deal with culture shock. The date to remember: Thursday, August 11, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in Jamaica and 8:30 p.m. EST on various international platforms all across the world, including the websites, Facebook and YouTube on RCP International Radio and TV, DCM, UFDV Gospel and all platforms of TDN. HeCoin, reaching people where they are, leading them to where they should go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. To come and relax with HeCoin. Leaving home and traveling to study in a new country can be a stressful experience, even though it may be something you have planned and prepared for. Many people are surprised when they experience the impact of culture shock, and it can be helpful to realize your experience is actually quite normal. Culture shock describes the impact of moving from a familiar culture to one that is unfamiliar. It includes the shock of a new environment, meeting lots of people and learning the ways of a new country. It also includes the shock of being separated from the important people you would talk at times of uncertainty, people who give you the support and guidance. Thank God for technology, and which has made this process easier to handle in these modern times. With us to look at this very important topic, as parents prepare to say goodbye to their children who are leaving for studies overseas soon, we have experts in the field who can guide parents, students, and those at the receiving end how to cope with culture shock. Our guests in the boardroom of Come and Relax with HeCoin are Daida Nashanta, author, educator, and resilience strategist, founder Resilient Foreigner Limited in Newfoundland, which is a part of the province called Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada. Mrs. Elvia Wright, former placement officer for local and foreign students, Monique College, and principal of Mount Nebo Primary and Infant School in Guy's Hill, St. Catherine, Jamaica, along with Mr. Christoph Malcolm, a recent graduate, Florida Gulf Coast University, and lease administrator, WS Audiology in Florida, USA. Greetings to you, our guests in the boardroom, and how are you this evening and tonight for Daidan in Newfoundland?
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure. Yes, it's really late, but I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Delvia?
Thank you so much for having us, Professor Jarrett. I'm okay.
Christopher.
I'm fine.
Christoph. Yeah. Christoph.
Yes, Professor Jarrett and others, thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it, and I'm excited to get on with this conversation.
Very well. All of you look like experts in your own field. Oh, yes, from Canada to Jamaica to USA, although Christoph goes between Turks and Caicos and USA. I want to start with you, Daidan. I want to start with you because you have worked in Japan for 8 years before pursuing a master's degree in Canada. In my time of studying overseas, and I'm sure all of us, climate, relationships, stress, and language were major factors of culture shock. Can you expound quickly on these areas for us?
Well, those I think are the obvious ones. Everyone thinks of, oh, I'm leaving.
Could you speak up a little louder, please? Could you speak up a little louder?
Sure. So I'm saying those would be the obvious ones. Everyone thinks, I'm moving from the warm weather to go to a cold climate. So I worry about that, or that I'm going to miss my friends, or maybe I won't make any new friends. If you're going to a country where they don't speak your native language, then you worry about, will I be able to interact fluently with the locals? But there are other things that come up, and in the midst of everything that happens, first you're excited. You think, oh, I am going on a new adventure. I'm leaving my parents' lock and key. And you there and you begin to mirror everyone, and you want to do everything that they do. Some of the times you even adapt their accents. And then the isolation seeps in, the bad sleep habits, the bad diet. You start feeling physically ill. You start feeling hopeless because now you have no sense of direction and the mental health challenges start coming in. You start wearing masks and putting on new personalities. You're not the person your parents said goodbye to. So it's a lot. And this is when the frustrations come in, and a lot of people are not prepared for it. But this is the reality that many of us, and probably all of us on this show this evening, have had to deal with when we left home.
Thank you so much. Elvia, three other factors of culture shock, which you have studied overseas, that come to mind: social roles, values, and rules of behavior. Can you expound on those for us?
Thank you very much, Professor Jarrett. It's good to be on with all of us here. Yes, social roles, having to do with the behavior that we exhibit as a result of being in a social environment. And these roles change. Yes, they definitely do. And depending on the situation that we are in, and, we are expected to behave in a particular way, in a certain way, when you're in a certain position. So that is critical for all our students. And our values, these are the guideposts of our lives, and they direct us as to what we want to be. And of course, when it comes on to the values, that there are it's what each person finds important in his or her life. And so the things that we really value, what we really want, we really define these values. And our rules of behavior, this explains what we can or cannot do in a certain system or in a situation. And yes, the students go and they have to behave in a particular way. So,
and it's expected that they behave in a particular way too.
It is expected.
Yes. Diane can speak a lot about that between Jamaica, Japan, and Canada. She can speak a whole lot about that. But Christoph is the youngest among us. Him just born the other day. The youngest amongst us. You migrated from Turks and Caicos to the USA at age 15 and completed high school there and university 2 times, and are now working in the USA. Of the 6 factors that were named and given earlier, which 3 factors were most difficult for you to adjust to, and why?
I would say for my specific instance, I had actually moved to Montreal, Canada, and language was a big thing for me. And it wasn't because of how I spoke mostly, but because of the foreign language that I was in, and me trying to adjust to that, and having others around me who were French speaking. That was difficult for me on my end. But I think once you have a strong understanding of what you're there for and what you need to do, you kind of have to put yourself in place to find out how you're going to get better at communicating and trying to communicate, because the onus is on you as a student to get what you need out of the situation that you're in. And language was definitely difficult for me, but I had to do what I had to do to make sure that I was getting the most out of it. And the next thing I would say is also rules of behavior, which kind of ties into your values. So I had to take my core values from my home island and from my home country abroad with me. Although there were people around who had different ways of upbringings and different ways of doing certain things, I had to make sure once I was confined within my core values, I was able to, maybe understand where they were coming from in certain situations, and understand and kind of, I would say, evaluate and kind of guess, okay, I can't do this, they can't do that. This is different situations, but once I'm staying within my core values, I feel comfortable with experiencing some of the things that they're doing.
Interesting. And we are talking about culture shock, and look at Brandon beside Mrs. Wright. See the culture shock there? He is in the United States studying. His grandmother is just with him for a few days, and there it is. She has to be as a guidance counselor, social worker, although she wants to push him aside. That is where the love is. We understand Elvia. We understand the process. You had the opportunity, Elvia, to assess students studying overseas, and you also did practicum yourself overseas in your master's program. How prepared were you for studying overseas, and do you think parents adequately prepare their children for culture shock, which can be very overwhelming?
Professor and my colleagues, let me say this, that really I'm wondering, sometimes I really wonder, can students really be prepared for what is to come? Because I remember going there, and I guess when I was there as an adult, that kind of helped me. I knew who to talk to, I knew what questions to ask, and that kind of a situation. But when it comes on to our students, as Christoph said, leaving and going there, it can be real traumatic. So, and then our Caribbean culture, does Caribbean culture really prepare us to face and prepare the students to face? I remember going into British Columbia to see some of my students, and I had to sit down, and as cold as it was, and as you know, Prof, I hate the cold, but I had to sit down, I had to spend time with a number of them to help them to understand why they were there, where they wanted to go. Thank God for my social work background. It really helped me to speak clearly and kindly to a number of these students who had spent thousands of dollars to be there. So I really want to say that it can be pretty challenging. Pretty
I
challenging.
understand. I understand. And Didan will pick up on that. Her name is spelled Didan. And I would have come with all kinds of pronunciations. So it's a good thing she said, look here, get this right, Didan, right? Picking up from where Mrs. Wright left off. And you're a Jamaican too. You have played a critical role helping our migrants generally to cope with culture shock and other areas upon arrival, where while they are integrating into their new environment. Walk us through some of the challenges you experience with various cultures that you interface with.
Over the last, say, 20 years that I have had experience to travel to different parts of the world, different continents, to be working overseas, studying overseas, volunteering, I have come to the conclusion that the challenges are the same for everyone, irrespective of where you come from or where you find yourself. There are some things, however, that I think everybody kind of overlooks. Everybody anticipates language barriers. They anticipate challenges with relationships that they leave behind or seek to form in the new location. And they anticipate challenges with weather. But many people don't realize how much food and the lack of the food you like can depress you. They never anticipate how not knowing the right clothing to wear can make your life a living hell. They don't anticipate how the identity that you left with back home is not the one waiting on you when you hit the tarmac in the new country. The way people perceive you, what they assume about you simply by what you look like or what country you claim to have come from, and the behavior rules that apply in this new culture, what it is that people expect you to do in different contexts. People don't understand the different values that exist in new cultures. So things that are trivial and irrelevant back home suddenly can be the difference between you staying in a job and losing it, or between you having lifelong friends or being left in isolation. So 3 big tips I would give to any student and the parents and other loved ones supporting them is to remember this. 1, always ask. It is better to be embarrassed that you are ignorant of something and ask anyway than to be embarrassed because you did a horrible thing. So that's number 1, always ask. Number 2 is always be prepared to explain what you understand of a situation or what your intention was to others. Because even when you ask, there can be room for misinterpretation, misplaced expectations. And so when you do make a mistake, be prepared to explain to someone to say, this is what I thought you meant, this is what it means in my culture, or this is what I wanted to convey to you when I said this or when I did that. So be prepared to explain yourself. And number 3, look for guidance. The two best sources of guidance are locals who have lived abroad, because when you live outside of your country, you suddenly become aware of what is the norm back home and what is different in another place. And the other set of people to get guidance from are other foreigners who you notice around you who are thriving. They are thriving because they have figured out what works and what doesn't work, and they are the best people to guide you into how to avoid all the hurdles and to kind of speed up your progress to living your dream and making the best of your opportunities abroad.
Solid points. It seemed like Elvia would have wanted to add something. See your head rocking. When you see Jamaicans' head rocking, it means something. You notice Christoph's head is straight. Yeah, man, like an arrow. Him come from church. Yes, Elvia, you want to add to what? Very, very comprehensive guidance. Very, very comprehensive. Yes, Mrs.
Thank
Wright.
you, Prof. Extremely comprehensive. But when she touched the point of clothing, I cannot forget my visit to British Columbia, because we were on scholarship. And I am telling you, the whole matter of peeling, many of us did not understand what persons meant. So really, we have to be aware. Students must be made aware of the fact that you will wear 3, 4, 5 sets of clothing going to school. But when you get to school, you have to peel. So the first one come off, the second, the third, and you're left in just one set, So, I had to really smile, because for me, I had to be running. Everywhere I went, I was running, and I noticed that other students who I spoke with, it was a similar situation. So the whole matter of being aware for me, very, very important.
Very well. Christoph, experiencing culture shock will shape your personality significantly by teaching you to trust your gut, survive during periods of loneliness and unfamiliarity, and develop a thicker skin. People experience tremendous personal growth when they are facing vulnerability. Do you agree with this statement?
Yes, completely. I believe it starts in the home before you even leave. The fact that this is something that you will have to experience. And my favorite quote to this day is, without struggle, there's no progress. So I just know that when I go out there, every struggle, every opportunity to struggle is an opportunity for me to get better as well. So I took that into everything that I did. And that really, really helped me develop more mature, helped me be more open to different cultures, because I am experiencing someone else's culture by moving into the country. They're giving me an opportunity to learn. They're giving me an opportunity to get a higher education that I couldn't get back home. So at that point, I had to go out there and open my eyes to what their culture was as well, and also give them a part of my culture. And that's where the importance of networking in an international forum becomes very important, because now you get to really understand the similarities that you have with a lot of these people from different countries. And that's where you actually get to really grow and network. And that's something you can take with you for life.
Didan, you want to add to that?
Well, Professor, I really appreciate the highlighting of building relationships, because relationships open doors. Relationships will keep you, as he says, for life. So I'm really happy that was highlighted.
Very well. This is an invigorating conversation. I feel the vibes, with our guests as we continue to look at coping with mechanisms for international students dealing with culture shock. And I know Dion McIntosh Dorsey, she traveled overseas to study too. She's also listening. Soon come back.
Do you want to study in a recession-proof career online? Health Education and Counseling Institute HECOIN offers International Diploma in Patient Care Technician PCT, which is a combination of nursing assistant, phlebotomy, and electrocardiogram through the American Medical Certification Association AMCA, which is internationally accredited. Visit www.hecoinglobal.com or call our WhatsApp 876-223-7204. HECOIN, your dreams can now be your reality. Health Education and Counseling Institute HECOIN offers certificates in housekeeping, food and beverage, customer care, security guard, events planning, and many other short courses, which are all offered online with 8 intakes each year. Visit www.hecoinglobal.com or call our WhatsApp 876-223-7204. HECOIN, reaching people where they are, leading them to where they should go.
Welcome back to Come and Relax with HECOIN. A very informative discussion so far. Didan Ashanta, author, educator, and resilience strategist, founder Resilient Foreigner Limited in Canada. Mrs. Elvia Wright, former placement officer and for local and foreign students, Monique College, and principal of the Mount Nebo Primary and Infant School in Geisel, St. Catherine, Jamaica, along with Mr. Christoph Malcolm, recent graduate, Florida Gulf Coast University, and lease administrator, WS Audiology in Florida. Now for you, Christoph, starting off with you, what are some problems do international students face?
I'm going to speak personally from my experience. And one of them for me was thoroughly understanding the law as it pertains to international students within a different country. And that can range from your rights as a international student traveling into that country, working in that country, being a student in that country. I feel like you need to have a good understanding as much as possible, even if you have to communicate with others, that what you are allowed to do and not to do, so you don't have any problems. I would also say navigating the independence of school life. In Turks, you go to school and you don't leave the campus, nothing, until it's time to go. If you do, you're getting written up. Your parents will find out. But in the U.S., where I went to school, at least, you have the freedom to move however you want to. There's 150 students in the class. Teachers aren't really taking attendance most of the time. You have the freedom to go in and out. So it's very important for you to understand that you need to be in class, and that's the independence of you having to go there and know this is what I am here for as a student. And third, I would also say food. That was difficult for me, not being able to find my oxtail and my curry goat, so that was very difficult for me early on. And, I had to call, I made a lot of phone calls back home. How do I make this, because I left pretty early. So I think those three, definitely.
Thank you so much. A good thing that you came from a strong Christian background, and your mother is a disciplinarian. So you knew that having gone to US, you must stay in course. Yes. Elvia, how do students overcome culture shock when studying abroad?
Thank you so much, Prof. My brother has spoken to, or I should say my son, has spoken to, so many of these. But, I think pretty important, critical for any student is to be aware. And I think Didan also spoke to that too. Be completely aware of where you are going and be aware of your surroundings. Now, that is one part to it. But I think the most important thing for any student is the whole matter of good support, an extremely good support system. I spoke with my niece today because I have 2 nephews in Canada. And we were talking about the fact that, especially one nephew, his sons who were doing so well at school in Jamaica, seem to be floundering, as it were, where their education is concerned. And so we spoke to the whole matter of culture shock. What has happened to them? What are they experiencing? I say to parents whose children are going abroad, have an extremely good support system. If they are going to the parents, it's very good because the parents are right there. But those that are going on their own, that is the critical part, because you must make sure that there is someone. You have to know, the parents must know who their child is going to. And let me also say that there are some parents who the children will go to. Let's say a parent lives in the States but they left the child in Jamaica some years ago. When that child go to the States, to that parent, it is sometimes a shock within the very home because parents and children have been away. And I found that as I interviewed some students when I did my practicum in the US, I spoke with a number of migrant children of Caribbean heritage. And to the point where I eventually said, I must write a book on this. Well, it's to come. But I'm saying that support system has to be critical. May I dare say that there are some children who have ended up in jail, whether in Canada or in the US, because of the fact that the support was just not there.
And Guidance organization, I'm sure from time to time you have been called to assist in that area. But Didan, why studying abroad is challenging cultural differences, and how can the W curve, which I was taught many years ago, help students with culture shock?
Thanks, Professor. I will say that the W curve is helpful because it normalizes the experience of culture shock. It lets you know that the problem is not you, but everyone goes through it. However, I don't think it is complete because it was built to explain the experience of people who left first world countries and not us who left developing countries. Our motivations, our challenges are very different. And I say this because if you look at just the passport, the power of one passport versus another. And so for people who, when you leave home to go study abroad or work abroad, your motive is economic mobility. You're trying to make a better life. Your challenges are cultural fatigue, social isolation, and financial insecurity, because the budget you made back home is not the budget you deal with when you get there. The expectations of those left back home is not the expectation that you realize when you get there, and the money is short. And so within the Resilient Foreigner framework that I teach, we talk about having a roadmap. This is the strategic plan. As Mrs. Wright talks about, the strategic plan you use to know, what did I come to this place for? What are my goals? You need to have your routines. When she talks about the support systems, you need to have those replenishing habits that keeps you thriving and healthy, whether it is calling back home like Christoph to say, how do I make this? Or getting to bed on time. It's focusing on routines that allow you to build that relationship capital, hooking up with the right people, not bad company that will lead you to prison, but making the right connections, people who will open doors for you, who will mentor you. And then finally, you need refocusing opportunities that allow you to track your progress to say, okay, I said I was going to accomplish this in this amount of time, and this is what I've gotten done, this is what is outstanding. But also to change routes, because what you left home with as your plan, that plan can change. Rules can change at the institution. You might go there and the professor you're planning to work with has gone on sabbatical. Someone might be sick. You might have to fly back home because there's a death in the family. So many things can derail that plan that you have. And so if you don't take regular opportunities to refocus and say, okay, this road is blocked, I might have to delay this a few semesters, or I might need to try a different specialization because this is no longer available, and being able to look back at your original plan, track your progress, and decide, okay, this is the route I'm going to take going forward. So that's it, the roadmap, the routines, and the refocus. That's what I share in the Resilient Foreigner framework, and that I think is better suited to us versus saying, oh, honeymoon period and disintegration and reintegration. It's a whole lot more in-depth than that when we arrive in these countries at a disadvantage.
I like your recommendation, and certainly for the HECOIN graduates who go overseas, I'm going to tell them to touch base with you because you have it locked. No, you have it locked. You have it locked, and I'm sure my guests agree with me. Back to you, Elvie, and then I'll go to Christoph. Though culture shock is normally a temporary phase, it is important to know there are things you can do to help so that some of these worrying effects can be minimized. and maybe died and dealt with some. Can you help us to examine a few of those, Elvin?
Prof, let me just say that people will always be traveling. Students will always be traveling. The world is like that. And especially our Caribbean people, they're always moving out. I think Christoph spoke to that, going out to try to find a betterment, and also spoke to that, to find a better life. And I really feel that it is time for the schools. I think some schools are doing it though. Yes, some schools are doing it, and some of the 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 agencies that come into our countries, they are doing it. But parents need to be very, very aware of what they are doing when they are sending their children out. And the children need to be properly advised. And I feel that it will take, or it might take up to a year for our children to be properly advised as to exactly what it is that they are going to. Let us remember that within our Caribbean setting, or I should say, let's say Jamaica, everybody is a friend. The neighbor is a friend, irrespective of what might be happening. We are all friends. When you go into some of these areas to study, for example, I remember the apartment I shared with my niece in New York. One neighbor died and we didn't even know. We just saw a few persons coming and going. So I'm saying, when we come from our Caribbean countries, we are aware of each other. In those countries, you are just there and people are just coming and going. And this is why we ought to be told, we ought to be guided. Our children need to be guided. Adults must be guided. Young people must be guided. Everybody has to be properly guided. When guidance is at its optimum, then much more can be achieved in this whole matter of persons going abroad to study.
Fully agree with you. Now for Kriston, I want you to share with us 5 tips that you would want to share with the listeners for international students now who will be departing soon and arriving at airports where culture shock sometimes meets you, and you have to deal with it, and how they can deal with it at that moment in time. The one for Christoph would be the 5 tips that you would share with international students.
Yes, sir. I'll start with saying that coming from the Turks and Caicos Islands, I actually moved abroad to be a student athlete. So I studied and I wanted to become a hockey player. So I played in Canada, I played in the US, I played in college. My goal was to play college hockey. I started roller hockey here. There wasn't a lot of support in that sense in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So a lot of my understanding of what I needed to do was done on my research. So my first tip would be thoroughly go through your school's website. You'd be surprised at the amount of resources that these schools allow the students to have full access to. And once you have a good understanding of where you may be able to find it, once you go, you have your questions that you already want to ask, and you would know where to go and how to do it and what to do going forth once you get to the school. The second thing I would also say is budget your expenses realistically and adjust periodically, because obviously, like my co-host said, a lot of things change throughout the year, and there's times when you need to adjust your expenses. You may have, for example, sometimes during the year, I would have to buy a new pair of hockey skates, which is much more expensive than a new pair of tennis shoes. So you have to adjust. And what I also learned too is to diversify your networking earlier on. So yes, you want to be along with the Caribbean students. I made it a conscious effort to not live with any of my hockey teammates, because I know I would be with them 6-7 days out of the week. So I wanted to, all right, I know I'll be with them in the locker room, hockey games and stuff. Who else is out there? Now, some of my closer friends are people that I lived with throughout college. I will also say, for me, was to plan my work experience early. I messed up on this one, but I was luckily blessed enough to be able to get back on course. But plan your work experience early, or plan to have your work experience early, because there are things you can do throughout your school year, especially in the first 2 years, that may make that easier in the long run. And last but not least, stay focused and enjoy the journey. no matter how bad the culture shock can be, you gotta understand this is just a phase, this is just a journey, and it's gonna be fun once you look back on it and you say, man, I went here, I did this, I did that, and it was a fun time, it was a great time, and you learn so much more about yourself. You feel stronger, you feel like you can take on a lot more things than you didn't with before you left. So just remember that this is a phase. You're here to do what you need to do, get what you need to get, and stay focused and just enjoy the journey.
Very well. Can see that you were brought up like a good Caribbean son. Didan, why do students abroad tend to lose their own culture? And can they experience culture shock at the departing and arriving airports? And how? Talk to us. Talk to us.
All right. Well, something a lot of people don't realize is that once you leave your home country, you have to deal with identity reconstruction. That's because the identity that you had back home, as maybe the crazy boy who wants to play hockey and he lives in a Caribbean island, and then there's the identity that you aspire towards. I'm going to be a major league hockey player. And then there's the identity that your loved ones expect of you. He's going to be rich and famous. And then the assumptions that this host community has. They say, oh, this Caribbean boy, he lives in a treehouse back in Turks and Caicos. And so you have all these identities coming at you and merging, and you have to figure out who you're going to be. In that process, that is how you appear to lose your culture. But I wouldn't say it's losing your culture. You are simply reconstructing who you are, and it's not possible to change your environment without changing who you are and how you show up in the world. Now, when you think about airports going and coming, listen, even if you go from your hometown to another parish, it's possible to deal with culture shock. So just expect it. Once you are leaving your home, you're going to deal with it. And Christoph, with excellent advice. Do your research. Get on the university's website. They often give you advice about how to navigate the airport, and will sometimes even meet you there to assist you through the process. Get in touch with other people from your hometown, your home country, and find out how did you navigate this process, so they can give you tips and hacks to say, don't do this, make sure you carry that, pack this here, make sure you change your money at this point and not at another point. So those are some of the ways to minimize the stress.
Boy, you have it locked, Didan. Trust me. A very interesting discussion so far with our esteemed guests, looking at international students and faced with culture shock. Grab a bottle of water as we take a break. Don't move your dial. We'll be right back.
Royal Central Praise RCP Internet Radio and TV in St. Kitts invites you to listen to Caribbean News Brief CNB on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Join Caribbean veteran in news production and news presentation for over 30 years, Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O'Neill Jarrett from Jamaica, for reliable and comprehensive news in the Caribbean. CNB on RCP every Tuesday and Friday at 10 in the morning. RCP, the breath of fresh air.
Thank you for sticking and staying with us on Come and Relax with HeCoin with our esteemed guests, Didan Ashanta, Elvia Wright, and Christoph Malcolm, all experts in the field of our discussion. As we wrap up this segment, how can we be relevant to our listening audience on this topic? So I have one question that I'll ask all three of you. Can our receiving relatives overseas add positively and or negatively to the culture shock experience? And I'll start with Christoph, then Didan, then Elvia.
Can you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Can our receiving relatives overseas add positively and or negatively to the culture shock experience?
Oh, yes, definitely. I believe that positively, when I left Turks and Caicos Islands, there was Skype. That's how I would communicate with my relatives home, and then it gradually got to WhatsApp, where I could talk, more periodically and more common than when it was with Skype. So I believe that was a positive factor, that they helped, where I could just be able to call them, hey, I'm going through this. Can you please assist with this? Can you please help with this? Negatively, which would be like usually when my dad's joking, like, yeah, man, I just made some nice, caught fish and buds and rice or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I just had Chipotle, So that was just something. It was just a joke, but obviously it's just something that you would really miss going home.
Thank you, Didan.
Okay, well, on my side of the whole perspective of helping, I think it's important for receiving relatives to remember your experience. Sometimes you've been abroad so long, you forget how tough it was. So take the time to remember what the struggle was like and prepare the student for the hurdles that are bound to come. Give them insights into how they can get ahead because they shouldn't fall in the same potholes that you fell in when you were coming along. Allow them to be equipped to be their best because they will never forget how you made sure that their path was smooth and they will repay you for it. I mean, you open your home, you open your heart. So help them to make it not such a rough and bumpy ride by remembering what it was like and guiding them through the process.
Elvia.
Thanks, Prof. Relatives, receiving relatives can really be a challenge. Many of them do not communicate, sometimes up to the point of the person coming. They are not even aware as to exactly what is really happening with this person. Many of them, I had the experience of speaking with some students again in New York, and they really had challenges. So for me, on the positive side, they ought to be aware of who is coming, the type of person, whoever it is, just know your relative that is coming to you. Speak with, if it's your brother's child or your sister's child or your own child, be aware of who the person is. Have some kind of contact. Because do you know that even sometimes when these students go to the airport, they are asked some questions as to who they are going to, and many of them are not able to really share much of what they should know. So it is really critical for them to be aware. Again, that awareness for me is so important. But on the positive side, there are some that really prepare for their relatives who are coming. And we should say kudos to those persons because they make their life better. And they will in turn, once their life is made better, they will in turn help others who will be coming to them at a later date.
Very interesting. Two principals out of Canada just sent me text messages indicating that they would want to know where they can find this recording, so that they can share it with their international students. So there you go. There, and I'm going to recommend them to Ashanta too. So Didan, so you can stay there, smile. Now, the last questions I have for you: can you provide an example where culture shock stared its ugly head right in your face? I will start with one. I needed batteries for an appliance, and I went to a store in New York and asked them at one of the pharmacies there, can I have some the triple D batteries? And they couldn't understand. And the young lady's telling me, I don't have any batteries. And behind her, I am seeing the batteries. And I pointed at it and said, there are the batteries. I need 3 packs. And hear her to me, oh, you're talking about batteries, batteries. And there you go. I am just standing and say, oh, my dear, I'm from the Caribbean. We don't call it batteries. We call it batteries. Elvia, I want you to start, and then Christoph, and then Didan. Quickly, please.
I want to share a situation with a relative whose children were sent to him. And it really turned out very bad because he had not seen his children for many years. And so when they got there, when those children got there, they eventually left. Reason being, their wife was not familiar with them. The children, I think they were, as it were, they were not very happy with what had happened with their mother and their father earlier. So the parents had separated, the father had now married, and it turned out real wrong. All of those children ended up, one literally on the street, but an aunt took her in. Another one found a sister elsewhere, lived there, and the last one lived with the one that had found the aunt. It can end up, bad situations can really go wrong. So for me, for that one, it was a real challenge.
Christoph, 30 seconds.
I left the Turks and Caicos Islands January 11th, 2011. Never had seen snow before. And we landed in Toronto, Canada with my dad. And we stepped outside for a minute. And that's the coldest I've ever been. And that was a real culture shock. I was wondering what I was doing there. And that's the only thing I could remember, really.
That's a good one. Didan?
I will go with a language situation. After living in Japan for 8 years and having hurdles with, getting detailed information, let's say in stores or business places. When I relocated to Newfoundland, I often forgot that I could ask questions in English. And sometimes I would be having a conversation with someone who was with me in a store, and I would hear a passerby just respond to me, answering my question in English. And it always surprised me, like they can understand me, because living in Japan, many times people wouldn't understand what I'm saying simply because I wasn't speaking in Japanese. So even from one foreign country to another foreign country, you can still be struggling with adapting.
And I want to end with you, because you have a company. So I want you to tell us about it in a minute, and how can persons reach you? Just a background on your company. How can we reach you, and include your telephone numbers and all your social media platforms?
Okay. Well, Resilient Foreigner is on a mission to equip 1 million migrant workers and students to become resilient. There are over 280 million people around the world right now who are living on study permits and work permits. That's a lot of people. And so we want to make a dent in that bucket. We offer one-on-one consultations, training sessions online, because we deal with people from multiple continents, different time zones. And in next week, we'll be releasing our updated strategic planning workshop. It's called Thrive Abroad Roadmap. And then we'll be opening up our membership community in time for the fall semester. So even if you are the only person from Turks and Caicos in the middle of Montreal, you can connect with other resilient students located wherever they are in the globe and feel a sense of belonging and oneness as you grow together through the experience. You can get details on resilientforeigner.com, info@resilientforeigner.com, and we'll be opening up, transitioning to our IG and TikTok channels, all of them at Resilient Foreigner.
Telephone.
Oh, we can't hear you, Professor. I think you're muted.
Thank you. I'm sure we all understand why I've asked Didan to explain about her company, because she would be able to assist in the process of culture shock. It was a pleasure having you, our guests, here with us today on this discussion segment of preparing our international students for culture shock. This is real, listeners, real. As an educator, I can tell you so. It is real. Thanks to Didan Ashanta, Mrs. Elvia Wright, and Mr. Christoph Malcolm for being our guests on Come and Relax with HeCoin.
Come and Relax with HeCoin is a feature of Health Education and Counseling Institute HeCoin, the premier online educational institution in the Caribbean. For individuals, companies, and foundations that wish to donate or contribute to this program, which is primarily to provide solutions to the worldwide issues of the day, please call in or WhatsApp your donation. 1-876-223-7204 on Thursdays between 8:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. EST, or during work hours Monday through Friday 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. EST, or email president@hecoinglobal.com. HeCoin, reaching people where they are, leading them to where they should go. Monkeypox is an illness caused by the monkeypox virus and can be spread from person to person. Based on the World Health Organization (WHO), there have been 14,000 cases worldwide with 5 deaths. Diabetes, on the other hand, is a chronic health condition and affects how your body turns food into energy. Come and relax with HeCoin, the voice of Health Education and Counseling Institute, the premier online international training institution, will look at monkeypox and diabetes management. HeCoin feels honored and privileged to have as our guest in Come and Relax with HeCoin, founder and president of Midtown Atlanta Nephrology PC, Dr. Frita McCray Fisher, a medical doctor in the USA who has been triple board certified in nephrology, internal medicine, and pediatrics. She's a philanthropist, businesswoman, and a dynamic, humorous speaker and a publisher. Her commitment to medicine and education, however, go far deeper than the eyes can see. Join host, marketing and media specialist, health educator and administrator, and professor of media studies for over 30 years, Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O'Neill Jarrett from Jamaica, as he discusses with Dr. Frita on the issues of monkeypox and diabetes management. The date to remember, Thursday, August 18, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in Jamaica or 8:30 p.m. EST on various international platforms all across the world, including the websites, Facebook, and YouTube on RCP Internet Radio and TV, DCM, UFDV Gospel, and all platforms of TDN. HeCoin, reaching people where they are, leading them to where they should go. Wow, wow. Come and Relax with HeCoin came to you today from Mansell East Meets West Indian Restaurant in Ocherias. Call them at 1-876-601-2612. Let me thank the following stations for sharing their platform and for making this program available to you. RCP Internet Radio and TV, TDN TV on vstreams.com, TDN TV on Facebook, TDN Network 1 on YouTube, UFDV Gospel and DCM Radio and TV on all its platforms. We are still in Jamaica 60, and so I will leave a beautiful rendition from the Honorable Dr. Louis Bennett Coverly OJ. This long time gal me never see you. You have to say it in patois to understand, and can only be appreciated and sung in the Jamaican language. A thought for you this week. Culture shock is often felt sharply at the borders between countries, but sometimes it doesn't hit fully until you have been in a place for a long time, by Henry Bresson. Join us this and every Thursday at this time for Come and Relax with HeCoin, sponsored by HeCoin. I'm Ambassador Professor Reverend Dr. Colin O. Jarrett, President and CEO, and in the second generation of this 33-year-old flagship training institution in Jamaica, the Caribbean and beyond, Health Education and Counseling Institute. Please now receive the benediction. May the strength of God sustain us. May the power of God preserve us. May the hands of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May the love of God go with us this day, now, and forevermore. Amen and amen. Walk good, my friend.
Could you please welcome Dr. Louise Bennett?
Let me hold your hand. Feel head jump, cross, sit down, country, come, pick up the blossom. Let me hold your hand, girl. Let me hold your hand. All right, Mr. Music, wait on there a little. Aye. Now you see, that is the Jamaican welcome song. Come, let me hold your hand. Now you have to welcome me, I welcome you. So you're going to sing with me. Come, let me hold your hand. All right, yes, dear. But I don't want to hear anybody say, come, let me hold your hand. You see? Because you're going to pile up the culture. No matter with that. Come, let me hold your hand. Come, let me hold. This long time, girl, me never see you. Come, let me hold your hand. It's a long time, girl, me never see you. Come, let me hold your hand. Feel head down, close, sit down, country, come, pick up the blossom. Let me hold your hand, girl. Let me hold you. Feel and turn. This long time, girl, me never see you. Come, let me read and turn. It's a long time, girl, me never see you. Come, let me read and turn. Feel time, girl, me never see. Walk and talk. Hold on there, little, hold on. You see what happened? I don't want to hear anybody saying walk and talk. And when I go to Canada, I don't have any trouble with this because they naturally say walk and talk. This long time, girl, me never see. Make me walk and talk. It's a long time, girl, me never see. Make me walk and talk. Feel head jump, cross, sit down, for feet and pick up the blossom. Make me walk and talk, girl. Make me walk and talk. Now we're coming to the mentor. You know the mentor that go? Da 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 da. You know that part? Yes, man. Make me read and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand, girl. Make me read and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand, girl. Come, read and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand, girl. Make me read and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand, girl. Oh, thank you, my dear. Thank you so much.